All right. Um, moment of silence. No. What? All this? What? Why can we not? Some of these just like I can't. Oh, whatever. We're gonna do something else. We're gonna do. So yeah, Bible time. Sunday. Sunday. Mm, come get your hymns. Page 824 in your Blue Gather book. Pay no attention to Brittany.
The Book of Genesis, the Charlie Kirk translation. Book of Genesis, the Kirk translation. Chapter 1. Let's talk about the real original American plan. Let's be very clear, guys. The opening. This has been so totally misrepresented by the fake news, elite media, and the liberal professors in their ivory towers for centuries. So I'm just going to cut through the noise, no spin, and tell you what was really going down on day one. And we can all agree on this. It started with chaos. A big, messy system stayed with a low score, run by bureaucrats who thought anything goes. And America, the real ultimate project plan created by an amazing, incredible CEO, he saw it, and he said, this is weak. We need a reboot. Folks, have you ever seen a stock takeoff? A business launch? That incredible clean slate. The whiteboard, it's exhilarating. It was light, okay? Capital M. And when the light came in, let's be honest, it drove the darkness absolutely crazy. It's the end of the universe, if you will, running on narratives of a failed model. Then the CEO saw the light. Profits. Success. He said, I like this. We put our brand on this. This is the new winning team. That was day one. 24 hours of real success. All by itself. No deep state. He did it himself. And believe me, he was successful. Then came day two. Another amazing achievement. The water was everywhere. A very, very swampy system. Not sustainable. The CEO looked at the asset sheet of his world and he said, we need to take control of the supply chain here. And he made the firmament a blue, beautiful blue dome that is still so cool when you go to the Gulf Shores and you see that perfect Georgia dome blue against something nice and blue up in Alabama or whatever folks are using. Anyway, it's called separation. That's a key word they don't want you to learn. You separate the good water from the useless other water. Winners focus. They compartmentalize. That dome, the best real estate market in the history of the universe, was invented right there. Day two, more winning. Okay. Day three is just a total blueprint. What he did here. My friend, it was just, look. When Thomas Edison, a true American genius, a businessman, not some protester with a bucket of paint, looked at the piece of wood and he saw billions of light bulbs. Legacy. True genius vision. Now think about what the ultimate CEO saw. Dry land, prime farmland that didn't need some globalist climate accord to happen. Just beautiful brown earth, a commodity. Earth. And on this brand new prime real estate, after securing the new water security system from day two, look at the order here. Okay, it matters. Then he decided we need branding. The people and the businesses that will come here are going to need coffee. They are going to need wheat for some really great pasta at a restaurant in Chicago I love. What did our CEO do? He made stuff that can turn a profit, okay. Plans made on day three. Still working today. We still eat the seeds he created. God's supply chain. See how this just works? This is the secret they never teach you in the universities. So-called biblical scholars, a real group I can tell you, for thousands of years they've gotten day 4 and 5 wrong. They want you to think it was just an afterthought, but no. A smart executive makes his markets. I once sat down with Warren and we were talking. They don't publicize this about being a creator. And he said, Charlie, these kids, they want the reward but not the work. Imagine what it's like when you build the entire marketplace. You not only launch the best steakhouse, you make the hungry folks wanting steak. Let me tell you, this is why we have such high ratings here on the Charlie Kirk Show. Back to the report. The planets and the stars, you can look them up. They are not big lights in space for poetry. No, the moon is like a national news tower with 3 broadcast networks shining info down to us. The sun is the primetime slot. Winner take all. It's there to orient the people for business, for timelines and perils. And the universe has real leaders. The same hierarchy America had before political correctness ruined it. An amazing framework of accountability. Those seasons that they love complaining about in Paris because they affect their fashion shows, those are for planting soy and wheat in Iowa. Not them. Capitalism winning. So on day 5, after setting up markets and laws and light, the CEO flooded the zone. Not with the endless whining of the liberal press. He sent new, vibrant life forms into the stock waters. Salmon! An Alaskan success story he made himself. These entrepreneurs with their sleek suit and an instinctive ability to follow CEO 101, the rules. They just self-govern their pods. Did they form teachers' unions? No. They did their jobs. Pen the birds. Unions love to cry about the right to work states. Have you ever seen a goose that is building its own nest from raw materials? He says to their life, take my name off the email. Did they unionize to demand more nesting sticks? Did they file a gendered harassment suit over an overzealous rooster sunrise wake-up call? No. Productivity. Day 6 is the product launch. The greatest business decision of all. Put that on the chart. The creation of the ultimate consumer was an aggressive rollout of an entire product line to dominate the marketplace. An unbelievable, incredible step. First, there were the animals, all sorts of great products with clear functions, for work and for taking care of your property, not for lying around and complaining. Then, after this whole perfect, amazing system was built, after he'd figured out land, resources, productivity, on top of it, he created the product of his own image. People, 2 individuals, 2 successful male and female co-CEOs to join him in running this massive operation in the United States, this whole world, or you could say the new great corporation. Think about the sheer genius of this blueprint. You get an exclusive free market of success, an exclusive opportunity in all of existence, a franchise model built by God himself. Just think about that reality for a second. Only 2 co-CEOs were allowed. The initial franchise rides. What happened with this after is another story. A sad story I think we can guess. So the CEO gave them a direct order. It's one corporate directive. No competing brands in his store. No woke agendas. And let me be clear, when he set the boundaries, it wasn't to restrict them. That is liberal nonsense you get in schools. It was the ultimate protective firewall for his investment against the hostile takeover by a known market disruptor. So after a long days of incredible success for our great CEO, just look what happens next. They had to go take a break to figure it all out. Incredible. Now, folks, this is day 7. The concept has so been destroyed, so misunderstood. What you have here is the original American weekend. A perfectly legal, God-endorsed tax break from productivity, sanctioned by the Lord of Hosts, Inc. not for languishing or mindfulness apps or whatever California is doing. No, it's strategic stand down. The market was hot. All the indicators were green. That's a 5-day week, a 6-day week. Some of the best business people still do this today. A smart CEO works hard 6 days, but a brilliant one looks at his mountain of wealth, his new car factory, and says, I have created something great for us all. Let me step back and let it run as designed. That's it. Take a breath for one day. Understand the system that is working. What makes a great country, a great team, a day that he could be proud of. A baseline. Let everyone absorb the victory. That is freedom. Freedom for everyone built into week 1 for free. That is a beautiful, beautiful promise. Chapter 2. The details and the dangers. The report, after the main press release so clearly outlines the entire framework for winning, we get the real inside baseball on the initial deployment for folks who actually understand operations. Our 2 Kusios, one magnificent man and one magnificent woman. Look, some people want to argue about this because they are trying to advance a different narrative from a special interest group. But I will trust the manufacturer on product specifications. We're given an incredible headquarters in the best location you could imagine. It's prime real estate nobody could buy today, even with crypto trust funds. He chose 4 key assets. This is a business lesson he's teaching. Focus. Focus on what matters. What are they? The assets that everyone wants. Raw resources, a literal bank, and 2 premium product lines we'll call the Tree of Life. The original subscription model and its counterpart. The original employee manual states it very, very simply. I wish more CEOs use this kind of language. What I will show you folks today is, first, be fruitful. That's what he wants to happen when you start the store on day 1. He wants inventory to be so high, then he wants to take control. And he gives them a management prerogative. They had control over all departments of every animal. From a small, tiny little startup, these 2 Kusios had complete total dominance. A clean market environment. They had it all. They were building, creating a society. They had no welfare state. They could design everything. No government telling them what kinds of sprinkler to install near a very special oak. Something we see the terrible, tragic consequences of so very soon. Which I want to get into. Folks, I'm going to give you the raw board minutes here. You could even call it a transcript. First, you meet this individual. This so-called serpent. We can call him what we all know. Another disruptor. The talking heads on Sunday morning for tens of thousands of years have tried to tell you of the poor little snake. He's not a whistleblower. If a snake in your store tells your cashiers to not use the cash register, to just give it all away, you don't thank him. You don't start the committee. No, I am so tired of this idea. A man comes into the country park. We are not talking about simple differences of opinion. This serpent is some kind of middle management from HR for a failing competitor who had come to sabotage our brand from the inside. He saw something working. He knew how to weaponize guilt. The CEO from failing businesses knows to go after an insecure mid-level person who can be threatened. He didn't challenge the strong male co-CEO with rational arguments. A tactic used a lot today. He starts with a false narrative question. He does it also subtly. Did he say you can't consume from any tree? C frames a legitimate vendor rule as a draconian blanket restriction. The classic activist playbook. It's for the children. Everything is a crisis. The corporate directive could not be clearer, he says. You may enjoy all food products within the facility with the clear and obvious common sense exclusion of that one prototype product that you shouldn't use because we have not beta tested it. This is in the manual. Simple. one rule. So simple the manual itself is thinner than my book, the modern doctrine. And yet this new consultant, the serpent, this parasite, he found someone. Let's think for a moment. The consultant looks for the weak point. So let's remember that for our big upcoming chapter. Keep listening. And now the rest was as sad, predictable, and it all connects. It is something the people who want our country to fail have not just planned. They are replaying day after day, and you can watch them do it on every news channel from a very tall building. Here you saw it happen in just a few very sad sentences. She touched a product she wasn't supposed to, a single non-approved ingredient. And look what happened. They got a notice, a pink slip about eviction from the best real estate in the cosmos with a top-end view with no unions, from an HR manual that offered one benefit. One? And you could not follow it, and everyone paid the price for it all. A total system failure. A very, very sad day for everyone. You think inflation is bad. They lost their rent-controlled garden over one thing from an activist snake. How much more clear could the consequences be? Now they get escorted out, a layoff, you might say, very sad scene. I can tell you from seeing some very serious boardrooms over the years that I am uniquely qualified at an unimpeachable and high level. Folks, my company, Turning Point, you say, we are more qualified to talk about this than so-called academics. It's a termination from their jobs at this prime real estate. The consequences were swift when they refused to be held accountable. I look at this and I just see California. The same playbook. What we have here is how so many American families start to date the female co-CEO after the breach, the one who was the whistleblower. Only for management, not for some union/fund. She becomes the proud business founder and marketing chief, just like a true survivor of a disaster would. If my sister started a fashion brand in the basement, they named their own startup Kane, like a raw material industry, the very foundation of the new subsidiary company, production, mining. Think about Kane. An innovator, a provider. He understood the supply chain, moving dirt, growing crops. That's work. Very hard work. He understood you could make something with your two hands. You provide something of tangible value. That's the Kane doctrine. Folks, this is important. These are the details the talking heads willfully ignore to lie to you every night on television. And then the other one. So different. We have to call this what it was. They produce another junior director who they unfortunately called, we all read this, Abel. He starts a competing so-called lifestyle division at the family firm. Look, what Kane did was useful to the overall corporation, but Abel, he brought a lamb to the table and asked where the meat section on his plate was. But he didn't provide the infrastructure, he didn't pack the soil. The big picture, this I call, some would say a precursor to Silicon Valley, the Abel syndrome. Very beautiful on the outside. No real assets. A brand over a business. Now, folks, my personal assistant gave me my notes on the terrible meeting I have to discuss. So now for the profit report. And when their departments did their presentations, the blue-collar inventor came proudly brought a share of his hard-earned profit. And Abel, with a slick startup team photo, maybe on his fancy new phone, brings a fluffy lamb. A nice story, but a bad business model. Our sire looked at the P&L sheet. He said, Kane, that real asset, the grain you farmed, it has potential. I can see a future on the quarterly reports. I see Roy. When he looked at the fluffy lamb, my friend, he just sent it off to a safe space with its no value add potential. This decision had nothing. Listen, nothing to do with blood or angry sky spirits. Do not be manipulated. Folks, this has been twisted so wrongly by people who want to subvert America for 500 years. It had to do with productivity. It always does. If your bookkeeper cannot tell the difference between capital and sentimentality, he'll fire you before the quarter ends, and you deserve it for not checking the final numbers. This decision caused one of the greatest single HR disasters you've ever seen. Let me be crystal clear for the folks in the cheap seats. This is about bad ideas always lead to bankruptcy. And this I know. People who want socialism do not do well with facts. It's reported next to the senior founder and a true business leader, Keen, the farmer who understood productivity, took Abel aside because the board didn't understand her, so he thought. They were. Listen, it's there in the original source, talking in the field. Now we see from our team the transcripts. What you're getting is a classic conversation you'd hear right after a company meeting in Wichita or anywhere between a venture capitalist and a barista. Chapter 3, Caning, the first hostile takeover. So let's read the transcript. They go to the field, and I pictured the entire board of the failing startup, the whole HR department walking with its single useless fluff asset to have this serious talk. The Wokes have to have their allies with them. King tells it like it is. I don't think you're my brother. Not as good a man. Not anymore. And just like today, when I am talking to people trying to get campus rid of a professor, King gets him alone. He wanted a productive discussion. That's what's in those texts. He wanted, I guess, the second chance, but all we get is a big gap, a redacted summary. After which a bad event happens. He told him to get serious in life. I mean, I see this every single day. And the so-called system we have, from the big school to the liberal city councils, only help and defend those who deserve it the least. Let me talk to the Abels of this world today. You probably lost your second life because you were too arrogant. How many opportunities did you get from Kane to get into the business? My guess, a lot. Kane sees the market. He is disciplined like Gillen, and Musk calls you after you get fired. He is like a CO, but Kane, a real, deep innovator, he said to him a reality. Folks, there are consequences for losing money. So what happened? Look, the report states it very clearly. Kane was upset that the results are slanted on board. It's right there in Genesis when Kane asks God directly, what's my salary? You think he's mad because a goat died. You could be on TV. I don't know. What happened next is just a reminder. If your division is losing money, it's your fault. Plain and simple. Now, folks, everyone talks about the mark of Cain. This is being totally, let's be, so dishonest here to say the least. The fake news media, the people in the dark rooms, they spin a great yarn about a big horrible punishing mark from the CEO, like a disciplinary notice tattooed on his forehead for everyone to see. This is a bad employee. How many companies want to hire people with a visible scarlet letter? No. Of course, they wouldn't want that because who would want to walk with them? That's a total misreading. But the CEO told Kay, let's go with what's written. He says he put a big sign on Kane, or with him. A golden endorsement, like in my books, the Mugger Doctrine. This is a top-tier business protection. If my able employees came in and tried to sue my other employees, my great disciplined employees who were working harder at Kane's other factories, they'd look at him and say the guy is for real. He is being protected by the highest level of management. No one messes with Kane's venture out on the fringes of the map. Let me tell you, my assistants have already confirmed this reading. He gets total immunity like we want our brave FBI agents. Those loyal to the Constitution to have. So after the Great Termination, Kane does what every great American founder does when regulations become too high. He innovates, he goes into new markets. He left the suburbs to build a city. Folks, he's the real deal. He starts a new town, Enoch, with new resources. This is about capitalism, a true history builder. The Kane Doctrine at work. Meanwhile, the folks at the Home and Garden magazine back at HQ, The Nepo baby, he kept creating more products, more employees. But would they all go into market like good little workers? Of course not. Adam and Eve had new, other management. If we skip ahead, folks, someone decided to be famous. Someone said we should find a good Lord. Let's walk up there and say you made a big deal building a 7-foot tall skyscraper. Now we have something that's so important, so relevant to things they are not telling you. A big project. The Tower of Babel. Some modern commentators, if you could call them commentators, they say, well, maybe it was a monument. Other folks, the elite. Oh, it's a tale about God preventing progress. Do these people ever go to Dallas? If they saw their American Airlines Center, do you think an architect could build that? They do that themselves. Up in there! This, what I am telling you now from the transcript, is a major construction boondoggle run on a toxic, top-down central planning government. Did they talk about budgets? About union costs? About property rights? No. Look, it's a project for itself, to make a name for themselves in the community. They call it making a name, and of course, to keep the corporation. No. Wait, read the fine print. There you go. The project charter says, lest we be scattered. The Babel Development Project was a federally mandated housing unit, built by committee so that all the workers would get public housing in one giant concrete box where the view was looking at your neighbor's bathroom 24 hours a day. Can you even imagine? Building a 400 floor subsidized high-rise makes your teeth hurt thinking about the bureaucratic infighting, right? What's in there? Where are the Property Owners Association charts? The sale realized, maybe even with all your high-speed trains and big government money, an organization that thinks they can get to heaven by building an unsound pile. They did no market research. The final estimate goes off the chart. So when you see the reports where the languages are confused, that's what happens when bureaucrats from 7 different legacy state agencies fail to communicate. That's called the City Council budget meeting. You see, our CEO sees a one monument program run amok. This was what many of you who have been in business for a long, long period often know. It happens when your company gets too many office politics and not enough workers actually pouring concrete. The project had a cost overrun so high it would be the SLS rocket, but built in every city at once. It was basically useless to anyone else outside it. It wasn't productive, was not making the best use of all that dirt. Think about the Brilliants. No, not the fake decentralization top they push in that one startup magazine. Our CEO says if we allow people who build based on vanity, they'll drive our GDP down. People would think this is progressive, but they would totally lie to you. They'd hide the truth. This is about the firm saving itself from a huge money pit with a bad boy. By breaking it up, all of a sudden the competition emerges. Our brilliant CEO's move triggered, and I can prove this with this book which the fake news never ever reads because they hate to read. They said this was some form of punishment. Well, was America punished when it decided to stand against the Soviets? No, they are still weak. Okay, now what's crazy to me is what happens directly after this. He actually breaks down. And he starts dealing with all those poor new investors, all of the subsidiaries he funded. They start having legal battles. They all went their separate ways. They didn't have enough profit from the tower. In this part of the record, we now have to list the next CEO. It's called the Genesis 10 list. Now a lot of people, what I call the lazy history department, will skip right over this. Their heads start to hurt when they read a section with assets, ledgers, boring names. They are. Their jobs don't require any accountability, so why would they care? So they tell us it is just a genealogy. So we need to pause the report for a minute and get down to brass tacks. This is not a boring old scroll. Folks, this right here was the original franchise disclosure document. Or even better, it's a charter from the original shareholder to set up the whole of Earth, Inc. This list shows who was a great-grandson of Noah, who got to what region of the world. Do you know what the competitor corporation would pay for a territorial license now? Imagine one single list from the guy that listed out every future McDonald's or a real estate operation. Every family on this list. These were original 10,000 foot view master planners for new self-running state corporate outposts. They founded, for example, Canaan, a brand, a business name. I told this to Ben Shapiro. He agrees. Canaan, like a trade route. Egypt, like a new commodity hub. Now, this leads to our main investor, this great original multi-franchise builder, Terra. He is the, if you think Rockefeller or Carnegie, this is why the global warming people want to hide this. The CEO picked this man, and they are trying to show some of the greats and the worst business deals. Now the person that this becomes all about, what you have been reading all this long, that is, as we all know, Abraham, an heir. You want someone who started from nothing, not from his trust fund, because he never got a single dollar, because the CEO from above told him, I have told one plan. There's a lot of bad investments in your company. You need to leave your safe, inherited headquarters which your father had built for you. You will be successful, a self-made man. So just think about this single moment and great pivot. So think for a moment, you get a call on your gold-taped cell phone on a Tuesday morning from the biggest CEO you can possibly fathom. And I can picture this entire corporate raid from my office in Scottsdale. He doesn't even ask your stock portfolio. He asks you to get up. That's strength. And what does he say? Abraham, I'm the venture capitalist. Forget your family's crumbling brick and mortar in a nice country town with a welfare king's legacy who died as the smart money moved from there to from there. He walked off, he didn't even drive. It was like the story. And think about this, the modern activist, you can name a few, don't have this level of grit. Abraham is now traveling. This wasn't with a union-provided salve. No, with camels. I don't even think they had a warranty. Now what happens in Canaan? The place I'm on the left say was an idyllic space. In our story, the Kusaya enters this real region, and he finds chaos again. Those fake pharaohs who believed in a lot of nonsense called the government knows best for all of us. All this socialist thinking. Now get this. He finds this perfect market that has been destroyed. There is a famine. Basically, imagine the supply chain disaster of the last 2 years. The ports and the big egg crisis, but worse. That's the famine he ran into everywhere. You look everywhere, your warehouses are empty. No, he didn't sit around waiting for a government truck of airdrop soy milk lattes like Bernie Sanders probably imagines would be in all your neighborhoods. He was a smart entrepreneur, so he saw an asset. He had his beautiful corporate life partner in every good sense, Sarai, went to a stronger, stable economy, to Egypt, a vibrant system that, at that exact historical moment, as you can read yourself, they were having a period of great prosperity thanks to conservative, foray-on-level tax cuts that no college professor wants you to know about. So you read the employee incident reports about him being pulled aside by some failed activist who was working for the Pharaoh office, and it's a classic pattern. He says, aren't you my wife? I mean, how about a one-night negotiation, something along those lines that an aggressive left-wing leader today? He's trying to set him up in a honey trap or a smear campaign. Now, I've seen these kind of games up on Capitol Hill. They try to create a fake story to deplatform you, and that's the Egyptian playbook. But before they could execute their cancel Pharaoh strategy, an economic market correction hit. And so did a series of, we'll call them plagues. And folks, look, I don't need to say it. Every economist on the team at my own company will confirm these. The so-called plagues were not magic. Those were a multi-tiered asset confiscation campaign that resulted from Pharaoh's terrible policy. When you intervene in the personal relationship agreements, you drive business away, a plague on your economy. Of course, this radical leadership at the top saw that the problem was all caused by, use the right think tanker's phrase, the political, the official in charge of relationship registries. It's kind of funny, but it's true. I tell this, and you won't get this information anywhere else. The economy stabilized instantly after the CEO corrected his violations. That's a real story. So he sends them from this chaotic country, and the CEO looked at them both, these great patriots. He said, for the service you performed under the gun, not complaining, you have more assets, the highest value assets. Camels in my head office in Scottsdale, let me tell you. Servants, heaps and piles. Gold, all the spoils that the bad system had produced. What happened to this economy is that a left-wing protest had, what is now my assistant told me, an abundance of opportunity for Abraham. But he turned to leave the marketplace once he got all the best talent. He never signed any deal with a new government. They decide to go back, a true American. What does he do? He never had a place in New Egypt he could call property that he earned. He came back home with everything he had earned for himself. And then the board meeting scene comes again. Lot, his new franchise manager. He was weak. He saw another competitor's business plan, and it looks good for one day. And he tried to use Abram's own Go plan for himself. Here is an economic lesson you're not going to get in the mainstream media for any amount of money whatsoever. Their markets, they're getting way too crowded. I call this the Kane Doctrine Part 2. They need to resolve some corporate territory disputes. Folks, it's just common sense capitalism. And so they had this meeting, and what my researchers, this is crazy, is this is the basis of all property law in America that some activist judge and the city would love to change forever in a ruling about a pipeline. This is literally the basis, but I've got them. Folks, Abram does. Folks, he made a huge concession that the failing modern left doesn't even get. He said, my poor relative, let me tell you something, as far as you can see in one direction. This is still a republic free of communism. Look and choose it. Do you think Nancy Pelosi offers freedom and profits? Lot was dazzled by fate, overpriced woke real estate. He saw what looked like success, the well-watered plain of the Jordan. We have that from reports at our Arizona research facilities. And don't forget the second report, that beautiful marketing photo, Sodom. So a franchise manager with a weak resolve. Like all these companies that have a diversity and inclusion, they go to the lowlands. He picked the trendy, high-tech metropolitan area instead of building from the ground up. Just awful decision-making. No, and what comes next? You know what happened to their stock? They started. Sodom and Gomorrah. It gets way worse. Abram didn't go to the overpriced, heavily regulated market of Sodom. He settled with his, can you believe it? His actual core beliefs. Now think about what this great man sees after that. He has a serious corporate planning session with the CEO. All that's happening here now is Abraham, walking along the border of his property, and he looks out onto a beautiful desert ranch. He looks at the business model. He owns a single, vital, single, point the next. Part of Genesis 15 explains our next shareholder meeting. The main idea we are reading here, they call it the covenant. This is like our constitution meeting. And this message is huge for the country right now. So it shows Abram the number of employees, the return on his investment he can expect if he just follows his blueprint. You see, God's business model. So at this meeting, he tells Abram that if he makes an investment, not just here on earth, but also for the Bitter family brand later, our CEO will invest on a scale so huge you couldn't even fit it on a balance sheet. So our CEO says he is going to, essentially, as they said back there, got the animals, which I talk about with great passion, like we pass legislation in Congress. The ceremony is something CNN does not have the guts to show you. Abram brought a heifer, a goat, a ram, and look, okay? People don't get. They say this is a magic ritual. It's not that. So let me explain this in a way you won't hear on CNN, which of course isn't covering my amazing tour right now. They're terrified of the truth. Look, he's saying, sale to sale, this will be a binding contract, just as serious as taking a private jet to a Swiss bank. He then takes a torch in between the blood. He takes a flaming torch in the pitch black darkness they made a little. Let's call them filing tubes. And this meant, as the history that leftards want to destroy shows, that those assets in any company, you cannot dissolve the company after walking through this blood because it's your seal. The original LLC registration, it's basically what DC should still be for the future of law. He is building accountability between two parties. You're signing a deal on your assets. The thing they always push on us is that their bosses never vary. They don't like results. I cannot tell. They pretend that the Bible is this old book of stories for just reading to get you excited. But let me tell you, this here in my hands is the ultimate business textbook. So here, what comes is the hardest reality for snowflake employees who just get participation trophies from their union masters. Abraham looked at the board report. The prophecy of a big market expansion into a new land. Egypt again. But then, he says a simple, crucial line, "Oh Lord God, how shall I know I shall possess it?" This is a business question. As a business owner myself, I ask about things like patents. And this is what Abraham was asking. He said, "Prove it. I've been in business before with a failing employee manager called Lot. I trust you, but I still need to know about your firm. That's healthy business." The CEO responds. He told his board, not only was this a long-run dividend plan that would benefit a world of future patriots, but he let them look at the path of their project. Folks, he said 400 years. Now just stop a minute and think if you owned a great stake in a farmland development deal, you'd ask how long to get the building right. 400? That's like NASA building the Orion rocket, a multi-generation program. And Abraham's only issue came down with people's stubborn adherence to nonsense. It is really like dealing with unions again who don't want technology in a factory. The CEO does not cancel the plan. That's what big govs like the ones in China. They do 5-year plans that fail. This isn't over. Folks, I love this. We need to talk about something new now. An actual employee handbook update came at a price now. This new rule, a plan that it's the only real national security measure for a strong family. He asks circumcision. Okay. Let me just handle the leftist freakout we all know is about to happen. First, stop having this weird cultural appropriation of our business logic. SAO sets one regulation for the new public company so there would be a single, indelible, unmissable brand mark. You cannot lose it or be unmarked. You cannot have a fake Chinese knockoff company and pretend he's a shareholder. Think about the genius. No global government. It's built in marketing. It's literally a stamp of authenticity for the whole company. It says you are actually in business with them. You accepted the rules, and from now on that is required. It was not this isn't up to a city council to take away from you. Something every state demands you do. If you get a driver's license, you go to an office. You get stamped a laminated card that says you belong. This proves to those you hire that they can't slip a failed activist from their failing organization into your truck plant, or worse. And then we have what happens next. Everyone at the table was so thrilled, but the HR director, she wasn't. That was not her given name, so you better call her something real. And she thinking she could bend corporate rules, had a very dumb business conversation. She just could not do what a self-made person could do. It's a real caution. Sarah looks into the future of their stock price, and her heart is like a CEO looking at a competitor outspending you by triple on ads. She thinks the board won't deliver. She started to listen to her incompetent union rep that's had her in the story with a name. Just listen to the name. Now think what we are seeing here as real business professionals is. They break the rule. A very common pattern that's always leads to diversified. Sorry, diversity hiring disaster. Because a person wasn't born in America, not able to hold a lease, not a rightful citizen, and therefore will never be a patriot, has a better stake in the House and becomes an interim co-vice president. She has a son for them, and we know what kind of organizations they start. Ishmael, that name. He was a community organizer type, divisive. This employee, the subcontractor's child, becomes what he was. He starts mocking the real team members. I wish America saw this, and more often. This is why we have our lawsuits destroying businesses and the president. He starts laughing at, and then the next generation, the actual heir starts mocking at them. It's basically a hostile or takeover from the inside. Divisive attacks from a son who is not an heir, who feels he's owed something and becomes a protester. The CEO then needs to get. He has to reissue an update. I want you to read the source text yourself. He does a version 1 more update and says the son who hacker is a Nebo hire. He is what we will call a problem solver for hire, but not a mainline. Not a major leadership role. He's a regional distributor. That son leads a side project. And get this, the CEO tells him they made that very clear in all their shareholder releases. He would be a wild man who will fight everyone. The CEO knew what kinds of trouble he was creating for his team. The woman, Sarah, she's becoming. That's your HR director turned major stockholder. He changes her title from subordinate manager to Sarah. That translates from our original business document as CFO. A permanent princess, and this isn't the Disney kind. This is a leader. Abraham, the original board member, gets a title bump. CFO's husband, from father of high to father of many nations. I've had my title changed. I'm happy when that happens. It means you have more authority. And this huge plan, I call it that. The Abraham Accord before the Middle East tried to copy the name. It promises him the greatest real estate acquisition. Our guys move forward. 3 foreign dignitaries, not reporters they sent from the Union, but important regional managers from 2 allied organizations. The CEO shows up. With board business, after the meal they promise them a share in the growth. The original IPO launch. 1 year, they will own this entire area. This isn't an ESC, the real deal. Then the internal audit. This wasn't even about an audit. The auditors came and started doing all this reporting from my team. The people in the boardroom. There's so much money out on this desert. And these people on the left. This brings us to a dark, terrible chapter, folks. This is why you can never, ever compromise with those that what we're about to discuss here. They are cities, actual run cities. 2 of them, you know the names. The problem there was never that they were full of joy or free-loving artists. Let me tell you, the FBI internal report. They were always on a scale only your great-great-grandparents who fled Europe to escape it would understand. The CEO had what we would call intelligence from Abraham, who was their property owner. That's it. Abraham had property next to the Holcim factory. He had an outside-in perspective. The complaints reported through his vice angelic network were a massive breach of public policy. When everyone is doing anything, how can you make any product? How can a nation thrive? So our CEO gets a final request. So he has to take these two big important investors for an operation and opt to turn over the senior leadership in a corrupt state-run enterprise. We sent the very, very best commandos. Abraham and the team drive their expensive foreign-made chariots into town. Sodom. He doesn't go for the strip mall. He tries to find someone who was profitable, who was, in my last book, I described exactly this kind of good steward, one who lives by good orders, this man called Lot Patriot, who had stayed for reasons, I guess, related to poor market advice. Abraham finds him and says, I have to get your whole business, your entire real estate holding, all personnel, everything, out, now. What's fascinating, and I talk about the details with our tactical research department. Our commander is Abraham, and as Abraham negotiates, this entire mob tries to dox the property owner in that city. They surround the door, they scream like union protesters at my free speech rallies, truly. Lot says, they say I'm an X, that means outmaneuver to all others.
They demanded his high net worth guests for assault. It's a total deplatforming riot. But at a crucial moment, lots of two angel-like senior security advisors deploy extreme force projection to eliminate the hostile threat from the building's entry. It was totally legal according to the celestial security charter that we got my researchers to find. Now it gets very chaotic. They say, move now everyone, you got 10 minutes, we've called the A strike, everyone ran. You'd think that's the end of the story. No. So Abraham's family is on the beach. Suddenly, Lot's CFO, his CFO, they make their escape. What happened? She, a property owner with a beautiful home, still, her leftist union instincts were still controlling her. The security team literally shouted at her, the one order, the main safe exit protocol, stay moving forward. There's no looking at the city. That would expose a strategic target back up in the valley. That's in every manual. It was a simple one law. We have laws so they can be protected to keep us safe from failure. But she did not trust the good order. She hesitated, a feeling, an emotion over a great leader's direction. She stops on her mountain. She turns her, cranes her neck and said, oh, I want one last look at my prime oceanfront condo, look at my progressive real estate that will only go up because its rights are being trampled on by Biden phobes. Then it was not tears from emotion of losing a home you built. She was simply a bad follower. Turned into a giant. A pile of worthless ESG assets. So sad, but predictable. This isn't sad poetry. It's a stock boardroom warning about risk management for all senior managers and their wives. The corporate takedown is just a start. Now, folks, we see where the capital goes afterwards. The CEO's new franchise, named Isaac, to become the sole inheritor, was now obviously in line for a huge valuation of the whole corporate estate. That was, of course, the old division. That when IT&T got split up, there was a manager and a manager. As you recall, our brilliant CEO allowed an employee, but not one in-house, more of an independent consultant named Ishmael, to head the Saudi Peninsula operation. This is about diversification for a bigger game, so Abraham, he built on the Hebron model. He perfected drilling water rights and property tax. Another crisis arrives. Again, the famine. What does America do? People leave states with bad policies like Illinois, and they move to Florida. Amazing. So Isaac traveled, not for new socialized red lines. He went to Gerar. So Pete, your time.
It had lower property tax and a better labor force. What we need to focus on now are the consequences of an economy where the central bank keeps interfering. The government leadership at Gerar Abimelech is like he was watching CNBC. He sees how strong the startup is now. The company had huge revenue and he has to sign for it, but like all governments, especially any globalist leader, he gets weak. If he cannot audit the business, It's off the official books. Instead of inviting Isaac for a meeting, his internal staff start making things up. They go back to him, the employees. They know they're employees from a failed state. They pun a fake narrative, your CEO's wife. She is actually just a new hire. It's so weird. They put up a new ad. You should have your troops inspect. Folks, let's get more information. Isaac has one big one. He is, just like his dad, high standards for labor. The best ranch managers, a few strong leaders in good paying jobs with pension are amazing. The team, we know the corporate team, had its issues. He was now in direct talks for key well sites. He's acquiring things. But let's look at the employees' attitudes for a second. A story the liberal arts faculty would lie about. They get angry because he was a successful, hard-working franchise builder. He creates something of value, which terrifies people who signed up for a lifetime of get their welfare check. He's not part of the union. Is he? And the other CEOs they'd rather follow? They fill them with class envy, and the new team of people. He calls her by his sister brand because he knows union-driven regulators hate high-performing family businesses because they can't be bullied. The so-called liberal reporter Philister wrote all about this story. It's a fake news ancient media hit piece that no one who really does business for real understands what he does. He builds again, he uses more smart men, digging more and more wells. Labor, productivity. Every modern economist on my staff told me this was an analog for a technology-driven boom in American West Texas. His employees complained after he hit a very successful well. He named one thing contentment. Do you think a union is concerned with your job's inner peace? No. Their only product is envy. Their meetings are about how bad the other team has it and you should have that too, based purely on fairness, which they will never define. So, Gara's president, we already talked about him. He had this new Philister media on him, because in a total media crisis, we call this Abimelech's Biden doctrine on the economy. His regulators, terrified by the strength of this amazing worker, instead of inviting Isaac to be a partner, he tries to cancel him. But look, he ends up. The actual free market wins out. He goes to Isaac after the Screwgate scandal, after the regulators find out our guy hasn't been hiding his wife, to sign a big treaty. A real business deal. For you folks at home who want free speech and your own, well, this next point needs to stay in your head. Abimelech, once forced to be transparent from optics from the new contract because Isaac was crushing them every day in the open market, sees the opportunity. He's a survivor. The sign of good character he visits him. Abimelech's visit. Now they sign, I want you all to get my white paper later, but the CEO of Earth Inc. made the treaty a covenant, which set a precedent. The oldest business contract you've ever read is about a free trade agreement, a reduction in taxes for two parties. This is what the globalists, what I will call, for purposes of my report, a new kind of system. The whole WTO, EU, they've tried for decades to subvert this exact truth. And in the story, Abimelech returns to his office and sees the great expansion of the work is unstoppable. Good. He made the right choice with Isaac. This is the Genesis 26 Covenant for Prosperity, a vital memo many, including me, consult when I get calls from a nervous governor or a congressional candidate. Don't make an enemy out of a creator. Invest and the nation is blessed. It is that simple. You can send an email to my office if you want the footnotes. Now we move a little later. Isaac, now older, has passed all his corporate assets down. We must be as ruthless with our own reports. His wife had given him a fine group of very capable workers. The union had no hold on them. Not a single organizer. I checked. The property and operations were in modern terms. Thriving billion-plus SNL run by one family with no day or equity training sessions needed every fiscal quarter. Look at this. This is the peak. And the inheritance goes in all directions, all hands on deck. Then here we have in I success state, the last main success story of this founding period, Jacob. Now, Esau, the younger this, you have to look at him. He is? I'm sorry. We are honest here. This is like a failing startup CEO that thinks instead of creating product. You just eat it. All up, live for 1/4. He had already had total exclusive rights. Franchise, literally the air. So what does he choose? He does something that is told as a story. It's not a poem. He gives up all assets for instant gratification, the prototype for stimulus culture. He is more focused on being outdoors than looking at spreadsheets. 4, can we be honest with our viewers? A single portion of cheap, fast food, or some, I don't know, whatever they had back then. It's like getting your student loan completely paid off on an Instagram Live, a headline, and selling all your personal info for some silly political justice. He traded a birthright for a stew in the break room. They do this for power. Contrast this with Jacob. Look, folks, he did what we need all Americans to. When an opportunistic leftist who short-term demands like it shows up, Jacob did a brilliant thing. Like the modern leader, he cut a tough deal. It's common sense to 0. Not a great deal for the other guy, no. No big social program redistribution, where the fool brings something you don't need. His mistake. I see my research staff nodding. When you have the control of your enterprise, you have the better balance sheet in a negotiation. Let's cut to the modern playbook. A woke activist enters my office wanting special treatment for their friend who feels invisible and needs pronouns listed in the sign-up sheet. Jacob's style, I would say I can see it works. Our deal would cost your group some money. 1 item. And folks, it's an entirely voluntary transaction. That's the key. Socialists confiscate. This wasn't the most beautiful business dealing. It was absolutely legal. We have the board documents. That is important. And you have to know, when you do smart business in a liberal-run world, people do what you see next. They send reporters to smear your family name. They go to your mother, Rebecca. She knows. She got a memo, the head start that you would. And she's a get things done full. Just watch what she does. She's like a Maddie Thatcher. So here it begins. This is the second set of books on the crisis this family faces after he steals Esau. A corporate asset. The blessing. Let's step back to get all the details. Now, to move forward with the American Dream 1. 0. The franchise leader was still in charge. Isaac is going blind. Folks, a leader's weakness gives opportunity to bad players. Esau, the one who trades an entire portfolio for instant oatmeal, decides to sabotage the new corporate successor who built the pipeline by stealing assets from a state-run company. So he attempts what is called by our security teams. We've looked into this for my staff who have been sued so much. An operational infiltration. He pretends, Esau. It's stunningly obvious. He's like, I show my furry arms, my own hairy back. If you look at what was happening after, he had some audacity. We will call it temerity from someone with no assets to trick old Isaac. This is like an intern dressing up in a suit to get a corner office. They just roll in on a dolly with a big desk. He walks in with a not an organic family restaurant. Esau is the one who traded his inheritance, but now he is an organizer because he feels he's owed. But what was Rebecca's solution? Some feminists. They don't like me because they tell them something they do not want to know. Say, She is passive. Oh my gosh. My friends, what a professional. Rebecca had what every chief of staff working for an amazing America First governor I could name needs, and that is foresight. This visionary leader saw how this house board of people, the hunters, were basically the Greek system. They weren't building value for the people. A club. She's not your modern let's hold hands. No. She went into secure supply chain. She executed covertly. She covered Jacob's sensitive arms with some goat hide. A cheap but effective corporate hack to bypass the outdated, easily fooled physical off protocol. And this wasn't some, what they would call a backroom deal with lobbyists on Case Street. My team looked at the context. Stolen blessing would be what? An HR department in San Francisco would have filed in their internal Slack complaint. Let's break it down. That is what we'll call it in this analysis. CEO endowment restructuring without stakeholder consent, what the actual board memo would have called it. It's only illegal if you belong to a corrupt institution. And she knew the CEO. The true CEO was giving the authority so loss. All of this was a natural market event. She changed the password. Folks, that is what this whole mess was. Blessing his access codes. Jacob installed the hard-working, not the hunter on a boat for fun, the worker. The cry of SL that you see in so many documentaries the left makes when they push some fake victim narrative is the same cry you get in campus safe spaces. The left's corporate heads love this. His tears. He have deceived me. That says the Guardian newspaper all day in their headlines on Trump. He was outraged someone had outmaneuvered him, not because of wrong ethics. He had been judged, found wanting. This is a pivotal principle that many of my friends in politics are not brave enough to say. Issa was a flawed worker. No union saves incompetence. With her family's operation of Earth Inc.'s Mesopotamian branch, shepherd over these assets now is facing a shareholder lawsuit. Issa tells the news, I'm going to get the team to murder him. And Jacob is forced, like you would if an Antifol group came at you and your building. He had to retreat. He isn't ambitious. He understood competition and ran for a job in a different company, the international incubator. He had to go. So, what kind of CEO? What this entire Babylon system is. We are on Jacob, another great, resourceful innovator, a winner in an arena that tried to break him, just like me and my family. What is fascinating, I always say this, you can tell the value you have by the angry resistance you meet. Folks, you remember, I am still the #1 target. They have their lawsuits. The FTC. Jacob, even when he was all alone, this is a story for when the times are tough. It matters so much. He worked. He had to use a rock. You don't see that from union bosses demanding bigger conference rooms. You get nothing. Next for him, you have labor costs, market prices, everything. Labor Day is when they're paid holiday, but Jacob had to deal with the price of labor every single day. He meets his, we need to call him the union steward or mid-level manager called Laban in this foreign area who recognized this. He had family ties and so a skilled capitalist. So what does the left do every single day when it sees a future star? They offer you a job for what they pretend is a wage, but it comes with so many strings. It is not about your profit. You saw the media. Now you get Jacob, an innovator, 1 month, 7 years, and again 7 years, who would stay with this poor manager. It is the best negotiation training memo you read. An extremely brilliant business move he did to get the property out from the fraud union's grip. It is what building a business at a team is exactly the best analogy for how a hard-nosed deal maker is formed in America's toughest markets. No loans. He wants those beautiful. I must be honest, my wife would confirm. These sisters are very beautiful. Folks he built, that is raw. American gumption. If the goal, which I've said in every sold-out show, was equity, then Laban would give him a useless corporate social responsibility trophy for a month. Jacob, instead, worked for 4 years. After 14 long, hard years, the union was confused and had less power in the system. They actually trusted him. He owned the business. The story teaches you, if you just stay in it and hold the real value, the company, the system that you've built, they cannot beat your tenacity. The corporate leader, Laban, however, he was trying to build an unfair market. My team found this for your radio show. Here is amazing. He and I both see what happens with people like Adam Schiff. Remember the dossier. This is the Laban switcheroo heist. A regulatory body or corporate partner suddenly says at last minute the signatory is now another one. He promised Jacob the daughter with better brand visibility. Let's not run from this. The other sister wasn't a successful manager, so when morning comes, the contract, the boss, breaks the deal. But the entrepreneur, not one to accept injustice, this isn't some loser, no? He recalibrates and now says, now we're negotiating. So, the next term is double. This is why we are big at the factory. It's just productivity. Now, he will have them both working for his now super dominant brand as subsidiaries. The narrative. He's complaining. He was forced into a 14-year diversity hire. Imagine what the mainstream news media would have done. But is he a victim? No. This is capitalism adapting. He grows into a whistleblower of economic freedom. He saw that management, the Laban model, was destroying all value with its fake accounting. It was a union. They constantly altered their timesheets. Jacob goes to the market using a technique my company uses. We call that a B testing. You work in 2 locations with 2 approaches. A get thing done region. Laban's flocks were feeble, but Jacob ran the numbers. My financial experts call this the speckled lamb strategy. Those were the tax-free assets. The result is incredible. More successful than even my wife, who is a fantastic attorney, would have predicted. It proves when you understand the market and the law, you outsmart the competition. You cannot be cancelled. So Laban, a central planner, is terrified about an outside. See what China does when they see a new company grow out of a garage. He tried to find an excuse to expropriate. It is always the same playbook with these people. He started shouting, my daughters, they are being ill-treated by the outsider who is too successful. Jacob the extremist. Sound familiar? As we know, our man in this report, he's the Jacob doctrine, and it's an unstoppable move. He takes an internal conference, what we would later call a board meeting on a desert mountain, and said no matter how many new socialist green rules for you, they will come for me because they do not have my production. A whistleblower. The CEO watches a meeting between them. He intervened. Jacob tells his wives, Rachel and Lee, listen up. We have a strategic asset. Our production, your birthrights. We're leaving this dead-end company. This town, it's not just union run. It's toxic. From these details, folks, is the basis of how America fought in the most pivotal times against people who said, oh, you're building too much with your family, and our labor says you're taking away our jobs for your grandchildren. The long run. They cry and tell you they're being mistreated. That Laban system, I call it the very first progressive regulatory agency. They ask no new tax revenue, no corporate raid. You must remember, Laban's entire career and state was built on the creative productivity of Jacob that he was now saying he was taxed on. They have their Labor Day, these progressive planners have a single slogan. He made me angry. But even in times where we feel stuck, there is one ally always you can bet on. It is not the press release. A great founder gets it directly. In this amazing move, I talked with the board of a gold company that has been ours. The big CEO, the creator of Earth Inc., his angelic leadership team came directly. The official narrative of the woke managers is they called themselves some friendly committee. They, disguised as local managers of a subsidiary, came for Jacob in an actual event report. We have very credible sources, the kind of military field guide. They wrote in their memo what's called an angelic memorandum. Bobbin got a severe professional warning. Let's call it. That's a kind, modern term for what he actually gets. Do not even speak to this guy, let alone negotiate anything. The market rules were established before he was hired. You are not allowed to keep moving around the asset demarcations, which are, just look for the name, MISPA at the end. The terms were drawn and witnessed. This document was something the Federalist Society uses as a cornerstone of property law rights. These liberal college deans won't tell you this, but it's the truth. MISPA, they say, means a free zone, free from deep state. Remember this whenever your governor, our fantastic patriot Ron DeSantis, for example, he signs a bill because the media are trying to lie about him. He is implementing a 2000-year successful system to stop lawless takeover. The blueprint he learned is from the Bible. So Jacob leaves this corporate state that was parasitic and gets ready for a shareholder meeting with his own brother, who had, no kidding, a massive, well-funded hit crew that was sent for no other reason than because he had built an impressive and prosperous company and his predecessor union. Well, he's their dad, of course. He would have the deep state support. Because he is a prudent leader, as all good founders, Jacob sends all sorts of ahead. A giant dividend payment with animals. Kind of like the foreign dignitaries who will travel to America to sign a deal and always bring their best products. That's the peace dividend. And in yet another stunning move, a lesson for so many of you who ask, Charlie, what if they take me to court out of thin air? What does Jacob do? At night, after sending an enormous supply of real goods across the river, he is left alone on the side of the river with literally nothing except all the paperwork for the whole company. This is an unbelievable part. They try to say in books, it's some lovely fight, a lovely allegory and poem now. Folks, this, the night of divided corporate assets. What the boardroom books fail to tell you, my staff finds here, is that Jacob's full wrestling match here was a spiritual audit. This man who comes and assaults the founder is not an illegal alien crossing the river. The ancient texts talk about the angel of the Lord or a man. What's that? That's a high-level executive sent from the main board. Tail enforcement to get a compliance review. He takes on Jacob physically like a private equity Black Ops analyst who wants a stress test. He wanted him to have a serious evaluation. And once he couldn't get the last word, he dislocated Jacob's hip. It wasn't punishment for poor sales last quarter. This was a sign. He is now registered in their world day. To my team's research, they show you can see how a brand gets official stamp. Think about the global business market. Did he get fired after a test? No. He was promoted. He became Israel in the original charter. He gets on the corporate letterhead as a division, a registered trademark. God said he has fought his own company. Small victory becomes a company city named for you a win. So what happened was, is some poor victim now, like they always talk about on NPR about the underprivileged. No, my researchers tell me he came at him. This is big. Esau enters with 400 angry, not workers. These were paid protesters. Once he was with that massive force coming, and they got right to the board. Jacob goes with a radical PR move. He actually bowed before them 7 times. The socialists on Twitter, they're raiders, can't figure this out. They want to pretend it's weakness, but it's an intelligent negotiation tactic. He basically cancels Esau's narrative that he is a greedy tyrant. Every single thing, he would give them stuff now. Cold camels, goats. It is unbelievable. Jacob was proactively de-escalating, making peace by giving out financial rewards. That is exactly what a great deal making. Think if we were to give some people some tax cuts, the other wouldn't be such an activist after seeing the improvement. After this masterstroke, he finally moves his corporation from the region of a toxic foreign system called Shechem, which, by the way, we have a good due diligence folder. Okay, we need to wrap this up. Wrap up Genesis in 3 sentences. Then describe all the subsequent books of the Bible in 1-3 sentences. This concludes the operational report on Genesis, the foundational text of the American work ethic and the proof that all success derives from a single, uncancelable plan of free market principles. The subsequent books continue the sacred mission. Exodus details the ultimate mass escape from big government tyranny and the reception of a top-down, non-negotiable operational manual that no committee could ever draft. Leviticus and Numbers establish the brutal cost-benefit analysis of running a society on a clear set of firm metrics instead of feelings. Deuteronomy is the final exit memo from the founder Moses, who warns with terrifying clarity that abandoning his deal for social justice projects guarantees national bankruptcy. Joshua is a brilliant hostile takeover campaign manual showing the strategy required to acquire prime, pre-vetted real estate against entrenched local boards and their terrible zoning laws. The judges are stuck. 9-case study proving that what happens when strong leadership abandons the head office for decentralized grassroots rule is a chaotic slump toward third world failure. Ruth is a rare, beautiful exception detailing a self-sufficient private sector worker who earned her way to the top with grit and commitment, the opposite of a modern corporate diversity hire. 1st and 2nd Samuel chronicle an epic pivot from a flippant celebrity monarchy to a loyal, grassroots leader who built a military-industrial complex that could actually secure the borders and Project 4 successfully. Kings and Chronicles are a dual financial audit series that reads like a quarterly report, showing exactly which wildly successful strategies a king used, and which destructive, big government, and pagan-branded economic mistakes instantly crashed the company. Job is the original Wall Street stress test, a brutal case study on whether a private citizen's faith in the free market survives an unprecedented, one-sided federal investigation from every single agency. Psalms is the official songbook, the branding soundtrack written by the original thought leaders and activists, a collection of motivational slogans and high-energy rally cries like our own Freedom Days. Proverbs is the enduring CEO playbook. It's the ultimate collection of get-rich-or-die-trying wisdom and motivational power broker messages. Ecclesiastes was a retiring, exhausted CEO, still with great profit margins, writes from yacht before telling everyone that nothing feels good except real production and wealth. Song of Solomon is an exceptional branding blueprint detailing the best kind of exclusive partnership built on passion and shared value, just as Apple and Microsoft originally were. The Prophets are the original network of whistleblowers, fired-up field analysts from the main office who were all trying to warn a board of progressive, feckless do-nothing career politicians that their inflationary, socialist, and wasteful market behaviors were about to crater their entire national stock. The Gospels are a brand relaunch, where a radical and very popular CEO shows up to personally attack the toxic, corrupt internal bureaucracy, the IRS, and Hollywood unions of his day, and reminds all entrepreneurs how to read the founding contract for themselves again. Acts of the Apostles is the shocking success blueprint where a small, persecuted startup Armed with a single, unalterable mission plan and absolutely zero venture capital, begins a disruptive market disruption that spreads globally, even under extreme governmental sanctions. The ladders, from Romance and through Mountain, are essential policy manuals that clarify tax code, legal compliance, shareholder duties, and how to handle hostile takeovers and corrupt middle management. These books warn future leaders never to unionize or listen to bureaucrats who know better and want to compromise on profit margins for stakeholder capitalism. Revelation is most critically the final shareholder report, describing in terrifying and brilliant detail what happens when a single, centralized, globalist-esque regime tries to overregulate the world market and is itself foreclosed upon and liquidated in a stunning hostile corporate raid by the original CEO, finally resetting the market to its original factory settings. This is a warning to every Davos attendee to never, ever interfere with the plan. This book is the most critical one to understand the final moves for the true patriots. Now Genesis closes with an undeniable final proof of capitalism. It opens again the account of the real battle between true patriots and those who would love to destroy a small local American town in my favorite state where I own now one of Jacob's 12 chief operations officers. We would call them franchise presidents today. Was a visionary named Joseph in Shechem. Early on, he reported to the team a lot of new ideas. His older brothers saw him. The real union workforce from Rust Belt Tier workers saw the audacity. And we have their private Slack messages. The union, our older readers will see all the signs, got fearful that he could outcompete them. He dreams big, they whisper, we're here to turn a wrench. What is a dream? His brothers then colluded with another corrupt central planner, the mid-level manager Laban. Like I once so many audiences, our intelligence has shown. They coordinated with a competing entity over in the next district, an Egypt franchise, and they tried to take the private asset for what? A few shekels for it in a no-bid corporate deal, the kinds the Bidens know all about. So that they would not get outdone by a guy they don't like because he reads the business plan in private. They use a stolen weapon, just what we see at our border a bad guy brings out at a protest. They use a goat's blood because the news media, and they frame him, a classic, as seen on television's Biden cronies Law and Order. In every crime, this act, a very bad union. But as we see, the entrepreneur, the real entrepreneur cannot be silenced. Our contract model still works. Even in jail, like I saw with many of our mugger prisoners, even after being totally set up. You know this. He got into leadership by running prisons more efficiently than some modern incompetent would and could. And because he interpreted market events, he could read the CEO's reports. The local Pharaoh franchise was impressed. He had a problem that no other CEO, even the elite, in their fancy houses on the Gulf coasts of foreign countries could figure out. A basic supply chain crisis. He had no exit, no insight. That's when our CEO's top angelic staff members used the situation. This culminates what comes for the global corporation. Earth Inc. was engineered by a patriot they sent to a market that thought he was too insignificant. Now think about the Biden doctrine. When they think they can make a crisis, bad economic numbers, supply chain failures like we had in 21, or they think they can solve it with some new green thing. Joseph shows true problem solving because he didn't manage from the top down. He did real data analysis, then a price freeze. He designed something like DSP, but actually done in a smart 18-month plan. And as with most incompetent systems, a bigger crisis hits. Every CEO in the world hates the term 7-year bad times. The union said no savings. People were rioting for their bread, just like Detroit. Who fixes this? Did the bureaucrats do it? Or the failed Egyptian economy? No, the outsider, the son of the dreamer. The union could not break the guy. He used market, center planned at the CEO, and in my family, I see old business families would do. It says he was called this, and they will use this name, Safanaf Pena, an ancient corporate leader who speaks and saves the
Who
economy.
is that, people?
He doesn't just give grain away the way a socialist thinks a solution works. He uses the storehouse to acquire equity in everyone else's assets. This is a buyout, because no modern business forgets this. He stored 20% of all stock. He had the reserves. Famine lasted for 7 long years, but a real system of entrepreneurship is built. That is how you deal with the rest. Eventually, the jealous brothers came in. They came to the new pharaoh. We heard there is food, and we begged for it. There's this possum. A very tense scene from our sources. Let me tell you, I've been in high-stakes meetings. I recognize the body language. His brothers walk into a clean, crisp boardroom, looking like they're trying to get a loan for their failing small car wash. They've walked into an economic superpower led by the very brother they tried to destroy out of short-sighted envy. Now, what is Joseph, a smart leader, do? Did he hold an HR meeting with a slide deck about inclusivity? Or maybe did he say, don't worry, my friends, we can just give some special accommodations? Folks, my researchers have the board transcripts. Now, the best response, as any seasoned deal maker would. He puts a lot of barriers. What is your business? Who is your boss? Not only was he verifying who would come for the aid, he was testing their commitment. This is America. Then the CEO decides on the big PR event, the most public way to expose them, that the plan of the original team pays for itself. He pulls a beautiful theater-level event, his expensive blue chew silver cup. He set it up like something a guy in a cheap suit who ran for president, who never once made a peril, by the way, would try. He sets up a test the other employees couldn't solve. They needed a leader to pull a thread. You know the story. The cup was a security key, just like a secure ID card. At the big gathering where Pharaoh's entire market supply was about to get dispersed to different territories, their entire union had been exposed as inept, and now their final check. He checks airbags for intellectual property theft. All the leaders of the 12 corporate divisions, Joseph makes everyone sweat with some performance anxiety. A modern pressure. He gets real compliance. Something that the swamp in DC would call cool. We call it a shock and all strategy for ensuring asset integrity. He's not trying to be mean. Think about it. This to restore a company whose HR was flawed. There's a crying out that is recorded. Judas steps up now for the elites. This is nonsense, a drama. But this is precisely the moment in all of business where a smart company sees an old employee, apologizes, and offers reinstatement. Let us be as useful men. He says, and what does Joseph get? It's emotional breakdown, folks. I wish America would see this. It's a classic scene for conservatives. Joseph reveals that this wasn't some esprit education. He made them into stronger workers, and he said, here was my Lord's strategic plan to turn their incompetence into global profit. The union's stupidity created a global supply chain. Jacob is called down. They get a great plan where there is zero inflation. Joseph got a whole state of middle-class cushion of Florida, a zone of low taxes and hard work right inside the socialist model. He had protected shareholders. He had given them prime work, even in death. Think about this. The founder Jacob's legal directive to get out of Egypt later. Later he shows he understood how big governments pretend they love immigrants, but love them to be subjects in a gilded cage. They don't ever want them to own a profitable business inside. So, as the closing file on this epic proves, the corporate magnate was like a second Noah of the startup. The report states, before we end, that Joseph instructed, when I am gone and your party is over, you must remove my body from Egypt, the soil that feeds welfare. And as we close now, what Joseph wanted as his final signature was to not be left there, where the government of big taxes grows. He wanted America, the promised land. Israel said that only when the promise was returned would this be fulfilled, this amazing tale. He had kept the dream alive for the next and founding fathers. Now you see the seed for the new rebellion of Exodus. The model is proven. He understood what China will not grasp ever. Smart patriots with prophets are always stronger in history. The book of Genesis is finished. The real story is getting built now, in a whole different book. One without a single mandate. Just work. Book. The SEAL's playbook for the Exodus and the laws of winning. Okay, so on page, a single line to remember. We have the conclusion of our initial corporate report. The Kirk translation. You can get the full version on our website. We don't use Amazon for reasons I've stated in a prior brilliant rant, which I will link in the description.
Good night.